The story begins on Christmas 1974 with a boy named Thaddeus Savannah. On his way to his grandfather's house, he plays with a magical ball to distract himself from his father's criticism and the taunts of his older brother, Sid. However, after Sid takes the toy from him to make cruel jokes, the magical ball begins to display strange symbols in place of the usual messages. Thaddeus then realizes that his family has vanished, and the car suddenly starts accelerating terrifyingly. When it stops, Thaddeus discovers that he has been transported to a temple in another dimension, where the wizard Shazam resides. He is the one who protects the realms from the 7 deadly sins, and now it is time to choose a successor, as he is getting old. This is Thaddeus's chance to obtain incredible power, as long as he can prove his heart is pure. It is then that the statues on the wall, representing the sins, also begin to speak to him, saying that Shazam is lying. They explain that there is another source of power right there in the middle of the temple, the Eye, a mystical object with phenomenal properties. Dazzled by the promises of victory and the chance to prove his worth to his father, Thaddeus makes a terrible mistake and reaches out to grab it. Disappointed, Shazam explains that this was already the test and sends the boy back to normalcy. He is so inconsolable that his reaction ends up causing a terrible accident in which his father gets severely injured. The magical ball rolls to his feet and the display shows the message, "Find us." Several decades later, we meet the boy Billy Batson, who lives in Philadelphia and doesn't have much sense. Lying that he saw criminals in a store, he locks a pair of police officers inside to use the computer with access to confidential data. His aim is to find his mother, Rachel, from whom he got lost at an amusement park 10 years ago. Since then, he has done everything to find her, always fleeing from orphanages and driving the authorities mad. Since the Rachel Batson he found this time doesn't look much like him, Billy is once again relocated. The couple, Victor and Rosa Velasquez, warmly welcome the boy, and his new home already has 5 other children. The 2 youngest are Darla, an excited little girl, and Eugene, obsessed with games. The oldest is named Mary and is about to enter college. Pedro is a boy who doesn't speak much, and Freddie is a big superhero fan. The next day, the 5 go to school, and Darla takes charge of showing everything to the newcomer. Still upset, Billy gets irritated with the girls' hugs and says that they aren't even real siblings, but he regrets his rudeness right after. Meanwhile, we see that Thaddeus has also grown up with hopes of a reunion. Pretending to sponsor research on hysteria, he manages to locate other candidates rejected by Shazam until he finally finds someone who recorded the abduction on video. With this, he discovers the correct order of the symbols that open the passage between the worlds and finally returns to the temple after all these years. Face to face with the now very weakened wizard, he announces that he did not come to ask for another chance, but to accept his fate. The 7 sins begin to free themselves from the walls as he absorbs the power of the Eye, and Shazam no longer has the strength to stop them. After school, Freddie is nearly hit by bullies Burke and Ted, who then start attacking him. Billy almost leaves directly, but decides to go back to face them when he hears some lame jokes about not having a mom. Shocked by the audacity of the newcomer, the duo chases him to the subway, but fails to catch him before he boards. Now Billy is alone in the car, and the train starts accelerating too fast, while the letters on the panel turn into a series of strange symbols. With a sudden stop, the doors open to Shazam's temple, and the boy steps forward cautiously. The wizard is already waiting for him with the same proposal as always. He says that this temple is the Rock of Eternity, from where all magic comes, and its guardian is chosen every generation. The reason for his excessive caution is that a huge tragedy occurred when a poorly chosen guardian betrayed the Council of Wizards, releasing the 7 deadly sins to spread misery and destruction. Not very impressed by this whole speech, Billy regrets to inform that there is no one so pure anymore. But the wizard insists that he needs to pass the baton before it's too late, and now his desperation is such that he even skips the test. Following his instructions, Billy touches the staff and says his name aloud.
Shazam?
Immediately struck by a lightning bolt, he transforms into an adult in seconds, already wearing a superhero suit. To top off the scare, the wizard starts disintegrating in front of him until he vanishes. Terrified, Billy says he wants to leave right away, and his wish is instantly granted. He resurfaces in the middle of the subway car, provoking laughter with his getup. Not knowing what happened, the Velasquez family starts to think he ran away, and the children try to help find him. Freddie gets startled when Billy surprises him at the window, as he doesn't recognize him. He proves his identity by repeating parts of their conversation from the day before, and they agree to meet later. The two then start experimenting, trying to discover what superpower Billy has. Flying doesn't go very well, and invisibility is soon discarded. But then they inadvertently discover lightning production. Trying to use this power to stop a robbery, Billy also activates super speed and discovers his super strength. What still leaves much to be desired is the overall approach, as the victim ends up handing over his money out of more fear of him than of the robber. This gives the boy a terrible idea of what to do with his new body, and he goes with Freddy to a convenience store to try to buy beer. Coincidentally, a pair of robbers walk up to the counter while they are inside. Billy decides to keep practicing fighting crime, and Freddy almost bursts with happiness when one of the robbers fires a shot, as Billy doesn't suffer a scratch, and the bullet falls to the ground all mashed. After repeating the test several times, and in increasingly risky ways, the boys convince themselves that Billy is indeed bulletproof, and then he throws the robbers through the storefront. Now Freddy feels more comfortable with his brother to speak some truths, stating that the adult Billy is less grumpy than the teenager. The two try to enter the house without scaring anyone, but the maneuver goes very wrong, and the Velasquez family panics at the noise. Hidden in Darla's room, Billy tries to explain what happened and discovers that it is possible to go back to normal at any time just by saying the word Shazam. Meanwhile, at Savannah Industries, Thaddeus crashes a summit meeting to confront his father, who has been in a wheelchair since that accident. His brother Sid is outraged by the audacity and orders him to leave, but it is he who ends up going out the window when Thaddeus throws him off the building, shocking everyone. He then releases the 7 sins in the middle of the room, and chaos ensues, with executives' heads being devoured and people banging on the door in desperate attempts to escape. When only his father remains inside, Thaddeus mocks his pleas and claims to now have more power than anyone. It is then that the 7 sins correct him, informing him that the wizard has finally found a guardian and that he will be able to surpass him if he has the chance to develop his powers. Thaddeus vows to destroy this rival and turns his back on his father, letting the sin of greed consume him. The next day, Burke and Ted arrive at school by car, but the vehicle suddenly disappears. The two are stunned by this, and even more so when the car crashes down from the heights with a bang, almost destroyed. This is just the first of Billy's stunts, as he spends the entire day testing his limits. Freddy films all the experiments and posts the videos online, quickly amassing a legion of fans. At school, everyone is talking about the hero without knowing they study with him. Freddy's discretion only holds until a new attack from Burke and Ted, when he starts bragging about his friendship with the famous hero. As the two start laughing, he assures them he will prove what he says the next day, as the hero will come to visit him in person. Billy is upset about this, as it was Freddy who set the rules regarding their secret identity, only to ignore them when it was convenient. The situation worsens at home when Victor mentions the new superhero during dinner. Only Freddy and Darla know his true identity, and that's why the others don't hold back in their criticisms. Eugene says that his lightning is only good for charging cell phones, and even Pedro says something, calling the costume ridiculous. Freddy is quickly consulted as the expert on the subject, and even he takes the opportunity to say what he thinks, indirectly accusing Billy of being very distant. The truth is that despite all the new developments, he still feels abandoned and does not accept the Velasquez family as his true family. The next morning, Billy decides to skip class again, but this time he goes to enjoy the fame without Freddy. He accidentally runs into Mary on the street and saves her from being hit by a car. Noticing that she is distressed, he is surprised to discover that the reason is that she got accepted into college. Mary confesses that she has doubts and the thought of being away from her family makes her sad, but Billy reacts insensitively, advising complete individualism. During lunch, all the students gather in the cafeteria for the superhero's appearance as Freddy promised. Worried about the delay, he pretends to talk to him on the phone, but the ruse is uncovered, and everyone starts laughing, allowing Burke and Ted to deal with the liar as they please. Billy is putting on a show in a square when Freddy arrives kicking the speaker. The two begin to fight, and Billy keeps shooting lightning to show that he is doing something more important than supporting his foster brothers around. Unintentionally, one of those lightning strikes a moving bus, and the driver loses control of the vehicle, which becomes hung up high on a viaduct. Billy rushes there to save the people, and only then realizes how limited his powers are. The bus ends up falling onto him, and fortunately, his strength is enough to prevent disaster. The passengers are very grateful, and a TV crew appears to interview Billy, who at no time clarifies that the blame was all his. Freddy becomes even more disappointed about this and leaves before witnessing Thaddeus's arrival. Billy becomes excited to meet his first villain, but his enthusiasm vanishes with the first punch. Thaddeus explains that the feeling of invincibility is because Billy has only been facing silly human threats, which have no effect on either of them. Billy tries to fight back and ends up lifted almost to the stratosphere, from where Thaddeus simply drops him. The fall is terrifying, and he almost splats on the pavement, but he acquires the ability to fly at the last second. Not very happy about this, Thaddeus soon returns, and the two begin an aerial fight with disastrous consequences for public roads. Realizing that he won't be able to defeat the villain, Billy transforms into a child again in the middle of a mall, throwing Thaddeus off track. However, Freddy becomes worried about his brother upon learning that there is a supervillain and starts calling out for him. Thaddeus recognizes him from the reports about Billy and decides to kidnap him to reach the enemy. At home, the other siblings also watch the report, and Mary remembers that the superhero knew her name. Connecting the dots, they deduce the secret, and Darla is very happy that she doesn't have to keep it anymore. After hearing a long reprimand from the Velasquez family, Billy confirms the truth when the others ask. Eugene then reveals that he has been using his skills to help him in his search for his mother, discovering that she changed her surname. Upon hearing that her house is nearby, Billy doesn't waste any time and runs there right away. Thinking that he ran away again, Victor and Rosa go out to search for him, while the children stay home. Thaddeus arrives soon after, dragging Freddy by the arm. Meanwhile, Billy is having the biggest disappointment of his life at the long-awaited reunion with his mother. She confesses that she did see him with the police after they separated in the crowd. It was then that she decided it would be better to let him be adopted by someone, as she was still too young to take good care of him. Moreover, she makes it clear that now is not a good time to welcome a teenager into her life. Swallowing the rejection, Billy says he just came to tell her that he is okay. Shortly after this, Thaddeus calls from Freddy's number, and Billy discovers that his adoptive family is in danger. Rushing to the rooftop, he transforms into Shazam and flies back to the house, where the children are being terrorized by the 7 sins. When Billy arrives, Thaddeus promises to release them in exchange for the Guardian's power, and opens a passage to the temple in the middle of the room. Freddy and Darla plead with him not to negotiate with the villain, but Billy decides to save them and crosses the portal with Thaddeus. Seeing the 7 sins emerging from the other's body, eager to witness the transfer of power, Billy cannot hold back and attempts to give Thaddeus friendly advice, as those creatures are clearly too selfish to have any type of ally. The sins demand that he be quiet, and Thaddeus orders them to proceed with the ritual, but it is then that a toy hits his head. Thaddeus is shocked to see the 5 siblings inside the temple, ready to defend their brother even without powers. While the Velasquez family searches for the children in the empty house, Billy and the kids search for the exit door from the temple. They end up finding several doors, but they don't know which one is the right one, making them try at random, glimpsing the most bizarre dimensions. Mary asks how he got out of there before, and he remembers that he just thought of the subway. Thaddeus is almost reaching when he manages to repeat the feat, teleporting the children to an adult entertainment club, which was the first place that came to his mind. Thaddeus does not take long to follow him, and the family then flees to an amusement park, trying to blend in with the crowd. Since this is difficult now that everyone wants a photo with the new superhero, Billy transforms into a child again, forgetting that the lightning of metamorphosis shows exactly where he is. Then Thaddeus flies over the park, challenging the Guardian to face him and threatening all those innocents. Freddy doesn't want his brother to risk a confrontation with that being, but Billy says that a true hero is one who saves his family. Watching the fight, Freddy realizes that Thaddeus' strength diminishes when the 7 sins are outside his body. Mary decides to use this information immediately and begins to insult the villain, who reacts as expected, keeping his focus on Billy and sending the sins after the little ones. Billy escapes from a bite from one of the sins by returning to human form, but ends up being knocked down into a fountain. Just when Thaddeus arrives to drown Billy in the water, Mary provokes him with a toy gun, and one more of the sins emerges from the body to grab her. This weakens Thaddeus enough for Billy to knock him down, but he recovers in time, and now all the siblings are his hostages. Freddy begins to explain that it is because of the eye, which is still in his head, and Thaddeus himself dares Billy to try to take it from him. Instead, he kneels and holds the staff to transfer his power to the wrongdoer. For this, all the sins return to Thaddeus' body, thus freeing the children. It is then that Billy thinks of the Council of Wizards and remembers that Shazam referred to them as his brothers and sisters. This gives him the answer, and he takes the staff back, offering the power of the Guardian to the children. Saying the word Shazam, they all transform into adult superheroes, and then Billy breaks the Guardian's staff in half. Each of them begins to discover their abilities, putting everything into practice against the 7 sins, while Billy and Thaddeus expand the chase throughout the city. Burke and Ted are stranded at the top of the Ferris wheel, which is about to collapse. But Freddy appears to save them in time, taking advantage of the fact that he is the only young one who can fly. The exchange of blows with Thaddeus continues to be intense until Billy tries a more verbal tactic and begins to compare the sins with each other, choosing envy as the most pathetic. This irritates the corresponding monster, who leaves Thaddeus's body to confront him. Since he was the only one inside, this leaves the villain vulnerable to gravity, and he plummets from the top of a skyscraper. After defeating the sin, Billy catches the villain in midair and takes him back to the park to forcibly rip that eye away. In the process, the sins are sucked into the eye, and with that, Billy defeats them. The 6 siblings are applauded by the crowd before returning the 7 sins to their stone prison and putting the terrible eye back in its place. At home, the Velasquez family is moved when Billy accepts them and says they are his true family. But who is even more moved is Freddy when Billy shows up in the cafeteria to demonstrate to everyone that he is indeed his friend. And on top of that, he brings Superman with him. 2 years later, the halves of the Shazam Guardian staff are displayed as a historical relic in a museum in Athens. The guide's lecture is abruptly interrupted by the attack of Hespera and Calypso, who are 2 sister goddesses. The guards try to stop them from stealing the staff, but each one who approaches becomes enchanted with whispers and begins to attack the others. A gesture of Hespera's hand makes all the statues start to crumble at the same time, filling the museum with dust. The cries of despair slowly fade away as the dust cloud dissipates, and we see that the goddess has turned everyone to stone. Meanwhile, Billy and his 5 siblings are still developing their superpowers and enjoying their double lives. Paying attention to the police radio, Freddy alerts when there is any work for the heroes, and Billy summons the others with a cheesy password. Outside, the 6 siblings transform into their adult versions, and we see that they have all learned to fly. Nearby, a suspended bridge is about to collapse, and there are hundreds of people in danger. The superpowered family arrives just in time to save everyone, but the bridge collapses afterward, and the news calls the heroes failures. Watching at home, Rosa complains about the public's ingratitude, while Victor grows increasingly suspicious of these superheroes who seem so familiar to him. Returning home, the siblings cross the passage to the temple, which they are now using as their secret lair. Eugene has taken charge of mapping the place, but it will still take a long time to finish just the room of doors, each one with a deadly danger on the other side. Billy calls everyone for a meeting, but the others end up dispersing and he becomes upset. Mary says he needs to work on that fear of abandonment, instead of forcing everyone to always be together, since the siblings are growing, and now each has their interests. In the realm of the gods, we see that the wizard Shazam is still alive, but kept imprisoned in a cell. This is his punishment for erecting a protective barrier between the realms, preventing the gods from attacking humans. However, this protection fell as soon as the staff was broken, breaking the spell. Now, the sisters want to regain their power and use the hypnotic whisper to force the wizard to cooperate. Merging the 2 parts of the staff, he says the word Shazam and repairs it with a lightning bolt, but such an artifact no longer belongs to him. The next day, Freddy meets a new schoolmate named Anne. She is impressed to see that Freddy is not afraid of getting beat up, and the 2 begin to get close. In the dungeon, Shazam pulls a magic shard he had hidden under his nail and casts a spell to discover the reason for all the disorder. Billy is dreaming about Wonder Woman, and just when he is about to kiss her, her face transforms and he comes face to face with the wizard. Furious, he warns him about the daughters of Atlas and claims he regrets choosing Billy. Shazam also says there is something to be avoided at all costs, but a lightning bolt shakes him before he can reveal what it is. Billy wakes up startled and sees that the other bed is empty, as Freddy has snuck out to play hero alone. The next day, he tells Anne about his glorious lunch with Superman 2 years ago and ignores his brother's calls. This brings them even closer, as she says her sister is also needy and bossy. Billy finally loses patience and goes to get him in person, telling him about the dream with the wizard and reprimanding his brother for his secret outings. In the lair, the siblings come together to interpret Shazam's message and research the goddesses he mentioned. They are daughters of the Titan Atlas and are responsible for the golden apples of the Tree of Life, which generates the magic of their realm. Surprising the others, Pedro reveals a secret passage in the temple leading to a library. He also introduces them to a magic pen that he named Steve. Freddy is the only one absent, as he is still trying to impress Anne with his famous contacts. Now he doesn't even need Billy to prove what he says, as he can transform himself and pretend to be two different people. Meanwhile, Steve helps the others study more about the war between gods and humans. They discover that the staff was crafted by Atlas from the Tree of Life, and despite being a powerful magical weapon, it is also possible to remove powers with it. Knowing this, the Council of Wizards decided to steal it and use it to subtract the magic from the gods, who have since lived in an isolated realm. Eugene warns that this last part is no longer true, as the terrible incident in Athens is already being reported. Seeing the staff on TV, Billy recognizes it right away, and the others realize that this is all his fault because he shouldn't have broken the staff, let alone leave the pieces lying around. Pedro interrupts the argument to pass on important information. Atlas had 3 daughters, not 2. The third daughter is named Anthea, but Billy guesses that she is using the name Anne to pass as human. She is still on top of a building with Freddy when her sisters arrive to attack him and strike him down with a lightning bolt. Returning to being a boy, he tries to transform into the adult hero, but is devastated to see that he can't because his powers have been stolen. A teacher appears at that moment, demanding explanations from the intruders, but Calypso quickly enchants him, causing him to throw himself off the roof. Without powers to save him, Freddy despairs when he sees him crashing to the ground and tries to escape. Then Anthea uses her own magic, rearranging the entire roof with her mind's power to deliver the boy to Hespera. She begins to interrogate him about the whereabouts of his siblings, but Calypso says that this is unnecessary. They are already coming to rescue him. Anthea repeats the trick with entire buildings this time, and Calypso can't wait to fry the whole group with a lightning bolt. However, Hespera does not let her do that before the time is right. The 3 are on Earth to recover the seeds of life and must not stray from the objective. Taking Freddy hostage, Hespera decides to avoid confrontation for the time being and removes a portion of the roof to use as transport. Billy flies after the goddesses, but Hespera raises a magical dome to block his advance. Freddy manages to shout before the field closes, warning Billy that they are taking the powers with the staff. Billy's attempts against the dome fail completely, and Calypso says it's time for humans to wither in isolation. The residents of Philadelphia are shocked by the mysterious barrier, and everyone thinks it can only be another disastrous consequence of that group of irresponsible heroes. Freddy wakes up in the dungeon with the wizard and is surprised to recognize him, as Billy told everyone he had died. He says his physical form left the realm of humans upon passing on the Guardian's power. The subject annoys the wizard, as he is increasingly convinced that it was a mistake to hand the staff over to such foolish children. At the same time, the other siblings consult Steve about the powers the wizard stole from the gods, as they theoretically should have passed the staff on to the heroes as well. However, since the first is the wisdom of Solomon, and no one would call Billy wise, this theory ends up not cheering the group much. Determined to save Freddy, they dictate a negotiation letter to Steve, who then transforms the paper into a carrier pigeon. The message reaches the goddess's castle just as Freddy is being enchanted. Calypso wants him to say the names of the other heroes, and Hespera is surprised by the boy's firmness, who fights against the hypnosis with all his might. Calypso interrupts his torment to listen to the letter, in which the heroes promise to deliver their powers if Freddy is freed. The goddesses accept the proposed meeting, but proceed with much suspicion, saying that humans are treacherous. Just in case, they decide to throw Freddy and the wizard into the bottom of a well along with the dragon Layden. The creature is about to attack the two when everything around them suddenly begins to shift. Feeling sorry for Freddy, Anthea uses her power to save him from the dragon and explains how to get to the center of the maze, where there is a passage to the realm of mortals. Shazam rolls his eyes as the young couple makes up, hurrying Freddy to escape before the others realize Anthea's betrayal. Billy's meeting with Hespera takes place in a diner, and the hero's plan already starts going wrong. The other 4 appear behind her at the agreed moment, but it is Calypso who surprises them with a precise lightning bolt that strips Pedro of his powers. Throwing Billy through the neighboring building, Hespera keeps Eugene and Darla paralyzed until he recovers and charges at her. The fight continues, and Hespera says that Billy will never be a true leader since he is just a boy. Darla and Mary appear to help their brother, managing to knock the goddess down for a brief moment. Then Hespera uses the wiring to trap the two girls, and the grip begins to suffocate them, while Billy takes a severe beating. The situation only reverses when Hespera becomes overconfident, giving a window for Billy's super speed. He manages to free the sisters and knock out the goddess, taking her with him through the portal, through which Calypso cannot pass. Now that Hespera is behind bars, the terms of the agreement have changed, and the heroes demand that she hand over the staff, as well as release Freddy and undo the dome. However, the capture is actually part of the goddess's plan, and they only realize this when she escapes from her cell. In the Divine Realm, Freddy and Shazam follow Anthea's instructions and arrive at the door in the center of the maze, unaware that Hespera is about to return through it. The two manage to hide in time and watch the goddess, who stole a gray apple from the temple. With some gestures and words, she removes the top layer, revealing one of the precious golden apples. Shazam deduces everything that has happened and once again curses Billy's stupidity. In the temple, the siblings search for the hostage in the Room of Doors and eventually find the correct passage. Anthea and Calypso rejoice at their sister's conquest, as the apple contains the seed of magic, and this enables the restoration of their world. Always more vengeful, Calypso suggests that they plant the seed in the mortal realm, knowing that this will destroy them. Anthea revolts against the idea, and Hespera also disagrees, as it makes no sense to risk planting the tree just to destroy humans. While the three discuss, Freddy sneaks around the atrium and grabs the golden apple. However, he knocks everything over with a loud crash right afterward, immediately calling the attention of the three sisters. Hespera is about to fry him when Billy arrives with the rest of the family. Taking advantage of the confusion, Shazam gives Freddy the tip to absorb the lightning through his crutch, and with that, he reverses the spell, regaining his powers. Hespera becomes enraged at Calypso seeing the heroes escape with the apple, as it was her thirst for destruction that caused this disaster. She demands that her sister hand over the staff, but Calypso does not obey her and decides to awaken the dragon. Ladon goes after the heroes through the portal, destroying parts of the temple in the chase. Victor and Rosa are still asleep when the room is invaded by Pedro, a wizard they do not know, and 5 costumed adults. Billy is forced to reveal the whole truth in the clumsiest way possible, warning his parents that there is no time for questions because the dragon is already coming. The monster's head appears from underneath the bed as he finishes saying this, and the dragon only needs to spread its wings wide to practically demolish the Velasquez house. The worst part is that it carries Calypso on its back, and she already starts stripping several of them of their powers. Trying to throw her off the trail, he throws the golden apple up, and Mary catches it, flying away from the family. However, it doesn't take long before she is hit as well, plummeting from the sky in free fall, just like the apple. Billy and Calypso dive through the air at the same time, each saving what matters most to them. Then the goddess lands in a baseball field and buries the apple in the grass, making a colossal tree grow in a matter of seconds. The stadium is totally destroyed, and the huge roots do not stop there, crushing everything in their path through half the city. As if the devastation were not enough, the monstrous plant also spreads several slimy cocoons, from which terrible creatures emerge. They seem to be assembled with parts of other beings and behave in a destructive but random and senseless manner. Anthea goes to talk to Freddy and explains that the tree would not have caused any of this in the Divine Realm, where it should have been planted. She says she will try to convince her other sister to undo this mess, and bids Freddy farewell with a kiss. Billy asks the wizard to take his powers back, admitting he doesn't know what he is doing. But the wizard retracts everything he said about him, now that he has seen him with his family, and says his choice was the right one from the beginning. Rosa asks him to transform for a moment, to hug her son before the final battle, and then everyone prepares for a coordinated attack. Anthea manages to get Hespera's support, but Calypso's fanaticism is so deep that she prefers to attack her sister rather than backtrack. Under her orders, the dragon pierces Hespera's body with the tip of its tail, and Calypso also attacks the youngest with the staff. She tries to escape using her powers, but the lightning strikes her anyway, causing her to become human. Meanwhile, the city remains in complete chaos, and the Velasquez family helps as best they can, even running over monsters with the van. Darla brought Steve to help and asks him what else can be used to deal with the gods. He replies that gods fear unicorns and like ambrosia, which gives the girl an idea. In the sky, Billy courageously faces Calypso, crashing through several buildings at once with the impact of his body on the dragon. The response comes back hard, and Billy ends up far away, surprised to see his costume scorched for the first time. Just as Thaddeus told him in the past, Calypso says that magic can only be faced with magic. She also informs him that she just defeated her sisters, who are nothing less than goddesses, so it will not be very difficult to finish him off. During the fight, Billy realizes that the staff is absorbing all the magic into itself every time it clashes with another force. At the same time, Darla decides to interact with a unicorn, ignoring the wizard's pleas. Apparently, the image that humans have of this mythical creature has nothing to do with its actual nature. However, Darla resolves the issue with a pack of candy, winning the unicorn's heart. Very pleased with the treat, it lets out a whinny to call others of its kind, providing the group with very practical transportation as it already has a lance attached to its forehead. Dodging Calypso for a moment, Billy finds Hespera and manages to revive her with his lightning. He explains his plan to use the energy accumulated in the staff to explode the dragon, but she warns that this will annihilate everything inside the dome. Meanwhile, the authorities try to evacuate the population, but end up being attacked by Ladon. Freddy and Anthea are in the midst of the crowd, and Calypso charges at them, ordering the dragon to eliminate them. Billy appears just in time to save them, pulling the monster's tail by surprise. Calypso is so taken aback by the audacity of these humans that she loses focus. Billy takes the staff from her and flies over to the tree, where he signals to Hespera. Gathering her last strengths, she begins to shrink the dome, allowing everyone to get out in time. Calypso finds herself trapped in an isolated globe again, and she becomes furious about it. Billy also remains inside, determined to sacrifice himself if necessary. Facing the goddess, he begins to distribute his lightning in every direction, creating a local storm. He punches the dragon to weaken it, and when the monster advances breathing fire, he flies into the flames, absorbing all the energy with the staff, and shouts the word Shazam as he hits the dragon. The lightning of metamorphosis joins the rest, and finally overloads the staff, thus exploding the goddess and her dragon. The dome dissolves as Hespera succumbs, and with her, the Tree of Life and all the monsters also go away. Billy's family rushes to find him, and Freddy finds him lying on the ground, lifeless. Everyone is devastated by the loss, and the wizard suggests a funeral in the realm of the gods in honor of his courage. To everyone's surprise, Wonder Woman attends the funeral, now being the last of the gods. She restores the staff's power, returning magic to that realm and bringing Billy back to life. He shares his power with his siblings again, and Anthea begins dating Freddy as her realm undergoes the healing process. Everyone marvels at the wizard's new appearance when he goes to the Velasquez house to retrieve the staff before traveling the world.